Commissioner Garing's on her way. She should be here in a minute. I was dragging my feet, but she'll be here in a second. We'll get going.
Hopefully you said, oh yeah.
Want to turn on TV? All set? Okay. We will call this meeting of the Port of Hood River Commission to order. Are there any modifications from staff to the agenda?
Yes, Commissioner Shepherd, we have one additional action item related to the utility license agreements on the bridge.
Perfect. I've got the language for that one.
Okay.
That would be letter D.
Yeah.
Is there anything from commissioners?
Yeah, I've just got two minor ones for either Mike or Kevin to discuss two items. One, this October 14th meeting that's coming up with state legislators talking about funding support for the bridge. And also a series of state meetings that we've got over the next 6 weeks, a whole bunch of them individually. So if you could just bring those up.
That'd be under 6.
Hmm.
That what you want, Kevin?
Yeah,
Under 6, under 6.
Yeah.
Do we have any public comment this evening? Yes, I assume we do.
Hello, Steve Tesmer, Hood River, representing the boathouse owners and have been serving on the Ports Marina Ad Hoc Committee since 2008 as that representative. I wanted you to know that the boathouse community has been working feverishly to clear up some misinformation that port commissioners relied upon in making their recent decisions and to set the record straight. This is going to require better communication and information from all parties to update currently available information prior to our roundtable meeting that you guys suggested previously. And I'm hoping that can happen sometime over the next several months. In the meantime, we are sure you will agree that it is important for every commissioner to be as informed as possible on these matters. We are providing you with a preliminary summary that we urge you to read thoroughly and allow us the opportunity to provide more supporting documents, as well as propose positive and fair solutions to the port's concerns. We also respectfully ask to be included in any discussions between staff, consultants, the ad hoc committee, and commissioners regarding boathouses. We're looking forward to working with you to find positive solutions. And you're all welcome to call me personally anytime if you have some questions after reading through what I'm going to hand out now. Thank you.
Thank you.
So if you can just state your full name and your place of residence. Thank you.
My name is Doug Powery. My residence is 310 Oak Street, Hood River, Eastie. I am also a boathouse owner and part of the committee that is representing the owners. There are 9 owners. There are 4 of us on the committee. Steve is handing out a report that we have put together that basically urges a reconsideration of what took place on August 16th during the meeting, whereby the decision was made to send out a notice of intent to not renew the lease that we now hold, and that it would automatically expire, although other options undoubtedly exist. One of the purposes of my speaking is to kind of give a little bit of a heads up here that this may be proceeding a little out of control. The steps that have been taken since that meeting I think are a good example. And without blaming anyone for this, because that's not a positive kind of solution, I will point out that after the decision was made, and based on several of the grounds that were set forth in the report that laid the basis for a recommendation to adopt the report and then ultimately proceed to give the notice, something really profound happened, and that is that all of the boathouse owners were given notice by the port that they had to make certain renovations to their boathouses, primarily the flotation devices, or they had to get rid of them by November 1, 2022. Now, these renovations included at a minimum in the notice $5,000 up to $16,000 worth of new flotation devices that were to be installed, and that's the bill for removing the old and putting in the new. Out of the 9 boathouse owners, after it was discovered through discussions with the OSMB that the law really didn't require that at all, and that 5 out of the 9 boathouse owners didn't have to do anything to their boathouses. That the grandfathering effect of unencapsulated foam flotation did not have to be replaced if it was put in prior to 1992. The non-encapsulated.
Yeah, and it was in good shape.
Yeah, and if it's not exposed to weather. So in those cases, there were 5 boathouses that were staring at, in my case, for example, a $7,000 bill. All of a sudden that disappeared when the OSMB was actually contacted by the boathouse owners, and we delved a little further into this. Now, I don't know how that happened, and I'm not here to blame anybody, but I think it's a demonstration of how we need to reel back on this rush to do things like give a notice of intent to terminate or non-renew, I should say. Because there are a lot of problems that I think were misassumptions, factually inaccurate statements, and we put some of this forward in the paper that's been circulated. You won't be able to read that now, but I just want to point out that it's not productive to proceed on inaccurate information, as you all agree. And we believe that it requires a cessation of activity, a retraction of the notice of intent until we can sit down and go through these things, and you get the input of the boathouse owners through our own studies that will be conducted without having to take up any staff time. And we will present our side of it. And we'll see whether these assumptions that were made in the report ultimately hold up on all sorts of levels. And we would like to have that, and we think the best environment to do that in is to not have this sword of Damocles hanging over our heads, waiting to terminate our leases, and that they be allowed to renew for the next 5-year term. And that's only a 1-year difference. And that we then, after we reconsider and we have our roundtable discussions, we can find out whether these are, eyesores, whether they are polluters, whether they are not paying their fair share. Those are the kinds of things that were in the report that we vehemently disagree with. So with that, I'll leave it to you to read the report and then let us know when we can start talking about this, preferably with a retraction of the notice of intent that was sent out to all the boathouse owners. We all have reacted on immediate notice, and we have done everything we've been asked to do to alleviate the kinds of things that are part and parcel of the conclusions that were reached at the last meeting on August 16th. So with that, I'll leave it up to you to make that decision. But we would appreciate knowing as soon as possible when we can start the business of talking about these things with a new, fresh look at it. Thank you. Thank you.
If I could just ask one question, Ben. Apparently on your agenda, there was something, Genevieve, part of management team discussion on morning around table plan regarding house votes. Is that on tonight's agenda at all later?
No.
You do not have to stick around.
It's so
All
fun.
right.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming down.
Thanks for listening.
All right, there are no comments on the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve that, please?
Make the motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chairs aye, consent agenda is approved. Genevieve, do you want to take care of our presentation for the CCRs? Is your name on that?
Yeah, so joining us tonight is Vanessa and team from IPC. And I don't know if you can bring her up on the screen. Vanessa is part of the team from IBC Construction that are working through the permitting process for construction of a new building near the Wasco building and on property that was formerly owned by the port. And there are CCRs that require Port Commission approval of architecture design for their building, and they've got all of their other permits. This is sort of the last checkbox of their process. And what we're hoping is that Vanessa can give you a brief look at what they're planning, and that the commission might come to consensus to authorize Greg to dive into the details of it and sign yes or no on approval of their architectural designs. So Vanessa, can you hear us okay?
Hi, yes, I can. I actually have Mike Cutler, the owner of IBC. He's under his wife's name, Rita Cutler.
Okay.
They're sharing a computer today, but he will hop on and he can go into a little bit more description of what that will look like for IBC.
And we do have, Mike, we have your renderings that we can pull up on the screen whenever you want. Well, just let us know and we'll pull them up.
Sure, yeah. I don't really know your, traditional format that you have, but I mean, yeah, I mean, the purpose of the building is kind of our home base. It'll serve as where we run our operations out of and do our pre-manufacturing. Our business is new home construction and land development. So the bottom floor will be, like I said, kind of where we run our operations to do kind of pre-manufacturing out of the shop. And then the upper floor will be an office for our staff. And then the other kind of 4 offices will just be small individual office rentals. And that's, kind of the purpose of the building. So, I mean, there's not a whole lot more to it that we do there. Pretty self-explanatory, light use of the space. Parking wise, we run 8 full-time staff plus the additional parkings, or plus the additional 4. I think we ended up putting in something like 32 parking spots. So, we're well adequate between the old Calcat building and then our parking lot plus the additional parking. We own the lot also behind it that'll have more additional parking that, or some of our staff will park in. So parking would probably be the only red flag, to a project like this. And we've adequately, accommodated that. So yeah, I guess I could field questions if you want to go through renderings. The description kind of breaks down what the product of the building is. And then we try to give you 3D renderings for, kind of what the look and color and design of the building will be.
And Greg, maybe you want to talk a little bit about the city code covering a lot of the concerns that the port would also have in architectural review.
Yeah, Commissioners, I think it's important to understand, going through some of the background about the CCRs. I did see some correspondence about a previous port employee that noted that these CCRs are largely captured by the site plan review by the city anyways. And so the concern about these things that are on this list, which is a small list, quite honestly, for a CCR, that's going to all be captured when they get through the process of entitlement through the city. So there's comfort in that, knowing it's not going to be missed. largely, I would imagine that the review from the commission perspective is on the aesthetic, if that's what feels like a good location. I don't know that is located in here, but it does say something that fits well with the existing buildings. And if I might say, from personal opinion, the color coordination that they've chosen seems to marry well with the 3 existing buildings in the area. There's 2 that are brownish, kind of brickish, and then our Wasco building has a tan and the silver. It kind of has a whitish feel to it. So the colors they've chosen does marry well with the existing structures in that complex.
Mike, you spoke about the pre-construction activities going on. What does that consist of? And also, is there a noise concern and also a debris smell concern?
No, probably the harshest smell would be like an oil-based paint. Pretty minor. Everything nowadays in new construction is low VOC. So your kind of hazard, toxin levels is unregisterable. So you're not going to get any off-gassing, debris. You're not going to really get any debris. Everything we're going to be building on site will be cabinets and trim base, all finishes. You won't really see any large scale outdoor production. So, there won't be any kind of like debris or shading that needs to happen. Everything will be inside. So,
Mike, would there be any concern as far as the noise? Is there any designed to minimize the noise from your sanders and your saws and those things?
yeah, so I mean that brings up a good, question. I think as far as like neighboring, facilities would be concerned, there's, I couldn't say there's no way, but it's highly unlikely that noise would be a concern because we're going to mitigate that sound room in the production room so well that the offices adjacent and the office above won't be affected by noise. So you're probably going to run, like a 0.2 on our level of sound barrier, which is basically like no decibels, even through the wall barrier. So the office wouldn't hear it. So if you were said 20 feet away, you'd probably unregisterable, on the decimals read outside of the building, because you kind of nailed it. The tools that we use will be paint sprayers, chop saws, pneumatic air guns, a compressor is probably your loudest piece, but that's also, once again, we'll build that into a sound box so the offices above and adjacent aren't heard. So yeah.
Thanks, Mike.
One question for you as well. During the summer months in your work area, do you plan on having the garage doors open as you're working inside, or are you got filtered air and air conditioning?
I think if it was 20 years ago in Hood River, I'd probably say, yeah, they'd be working outside. Nowadays with our 105-degree average summers. No, we added, all of our employees asked for AC in the shop space. So I doubt that you're going to see open doors. I bet you see AC running.
and more.
So
Okay,
yeah,
right, thank you.
yeah.
Any other questions? So what they're looking for, I think staff's looking for tonight is just a consensus to, and we don't need to take a vote, just a consensus to allow Greg to move forward here.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Greg's got to get a handle on
Me
it.
too.
That's it. We've got a redundancy with the city, so
Okay.
I'm fine with that.
Heather, Christie.
Yep, it's all good.
Okay,
It's pretty building.
you got it.
Good luck, bud.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Hey, Chair, before you move to the next one, I actually wanted to talk for a few minutes on item number 3, which is the financial report for year end.
I don't know if we had Fred with us, but you had some, yeah, absolutely.
It's real easy. It's pretty simple. If you take a look at the first fold out sheet, it says budget to actuals.
Sheet 2.
Yeah, so that's on,
Number 2. sheet number
yeah,
2.
the first sheet that says budget to actuals. It's 100% through budget. One of the things that I should note on these, you'll see that there are some figures in red and there are some figures in green. So those are the numbers after the budget transfer that happens at the end of the fiscal year. So, for example, the 188,400 there for the Jensen property, the budget was lowered to 188,400. Yeah,
What I'm trying to get to, and I don't know if I got the right data here, but I'd really like to see on each of these, what I call cost centers, the industrial facility, commercial, waterfront, et cetera.
okay,
How much money did each of those centers spend?
okay,
And what was the revenue each generated excluding bridge tolls?
Mhm.
And I want,
okay.
I would like to know how much do we need to make up, say, at the airport?
okay,
Because I know at the airport, we spent more money than we got revenue for,
right,
but how much?
right. So that's actually on the last page. So that's the statement of operating revenues, expenditures, and other sources and uses of funds. You see that one? That's the last page. We'll show you.
Statement of operation.
So,
Last
page, yeah. So the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 columns there is the revenue fund. Then we have the general fund, and then we have the bridge repair and replacement fund. And that will show you revenues and expenditures by category there.
Can you just give me the number for the airport?
So for the airport, we have a
Is it that 156 loss?
yeah, a loss of 156,044, but this is because we have not received the last check of the year from the FAA because they're waiting on a closeout report for us. So in the next quarter, that loss will be less. I'm not saying it's going to be a profit, but it will be less than that 156.
Okay, but at the same time, we've got another quarter of expense
Sure.
and so on
Mhm.
that,
Right.
so it's a cash flow issue.
Yeah, it's cash flow.
So if you just look at it purely, we're 156, 157 in the hole.
Right. And
Um,
you'll see that also in waterfront. Waterfront almost always operates at a
Mhm.
loss. This 137 is actually pretty good, I think, compared to recent memory of other years. It was hovering more around 300 before we implemented paid parking. So that's us chipping away at that.
So the reason for this, so I can see the airport's negative, marina's negative, marina park is negative. Recreation area is negative. Waterfront industrial land, I believe, is negative. And the commercial facilities, the state office is negative as well. So I really think we've got to get a lot more, and I hate this term. We got to give more effort towards finding these revenues to get this from negative to positive with our bridge and the status of our particular bridge. I spent some time and I've talked to Heather about this and others. Maybe we need to look at the Marina Green, other ways, and I think I've talked to Daryl, other ways of creating revenue. Out on the East Coast, they use things called beach tags. And beach tags are day tag usages of anywhere from $5 to $10 a day. Now, they use that to pay for cleaning up the bridge and maintaining the park area and that kind of thing, but they also use it for life-saving guards and so on. But it's a way to create some more revenue. And I'm not saying we need to go do it, but I'd really like to see somebody take this on with a goal of how do we get this negative to a positive in a reasonable period of time. And the reasonable, I think, because the state of our bridge is probably 3 to 4 years, not 8 years. And if we don't start that journey, we're just running towards a cliff, guys. It's coming. And I'm afraid it's going to be here sooner than we think it is. I would just encourage us to do that.
Oftentimes in fall planning, we have those discussions on, new rent, for example, we do need to do some updates to ordinance 24, which is governs behavior on waterfront properties. And it also codifies our parking rates and fines and fees. And Daryl and I both have some pretty strong feelings about increases that are needed there. With programs that are already in place that wouldn't really have the need to staff up
Yeah, I'm just-
tremendously, but would increase that.
I
revenue.
would just encourage us not to wait for fall planning. You know, the last couple of plannings, frankly, didn't result in a whole bunch of stuff going on, in my opinion. And again, I'll say it just once more time. I'm concerned that this bridge is gonna go away much sooner than people think it's gonna go away. So we gotta be ready for it. And I just sense,
Mike, you want to clarify going away or low limits? Same thing or going away mean closed?
both,
Well, the
it's
timeframes are
scary,
different,
it's scary,
Right.
yes,
but initially you're gonna be low limits first and then eventually you'll be closure. Is that correct?
yes.
So your timeline for, say, lower limits is what, 3 to 5 years?
I think it could be sooner than that, and I'm afraid, I think we've got to be aggressive in our planning. That we no longer plan that we're gonna have that bridge in 8 years.
I think the point he's trying to make is one we've just talked about before, that our urgency in everything that's not bridge needs to be equal to our urgency
Yes,
in replacing the bridge.
yes.
Absolutely.
So how do we make fall planning more productive then? It's up to us.
Mhm.
Decide that.
Well,
We
I
have
think
the- we
that's-
have the control of that. So,
I think that's part of it.
yeah, so we need to do a better job. And if we didn't feel like you achieved what you want to achieve last fall planning, then we need to step it up and achieve what we want.
Well, I have high expectations of this one. But I think waiting for fall planning, like I know Heather and I have talked about the airport. With the airport going to every other month or every 3 months meetings, the signal that sends to me is that there's not that sense of urgency. We're okay, life is good. And I think we've got to create the sense of urgency is life is not good. And the cliff is coming at us and we've got to get,
Well, Mike, when you refer to the airport though, I don't think it's the advisory board to figure out our problem.
no, but
So
I
that
think
we
we
meet
charged,
twice a month. So
we've charged it, if I'm correct, and maybe I'm not. We've charged the airport commission or the working group to come up with some innovative ideas of how could we increase the revenue stream at the airport.
the bottom line, that's our job. I mean, that's our job
I
here.
know,
Yeah. And
but
so,
we've asked them to help us with ideas.
right. But so if they go to it every 90 day or every 60 days meeting, that shouldn't affect us.
Oh, I think it will.
I think we should be creative and answer our own problems ourselves.
One of
We have the
need to
ability, we
just-
have an intelligent staff.
We need to not, and this commission, I think over the last couple of years, I've been really impressed, like, we have done a good job, I think, of making decisions.
Mhm.
And instructing staff to move forward with that decision and not. Dancing around decisions and not being wishy-washy. It's been. Really fun to be a part of and really exciting to be a part of, and I think we need to do that. As it relates to development in a lot of our different. Areas with the goal of being revenue positive in all of them individually, not as a
Right.
whole, but individually.
Yeah.
Revenue positive, but actually make decisions to give direction out of, I don't care if it's fall planning or in your regular meeting, make a decision and say, do it.
Yeah.
And expect it to get done.
I'm just expressing a concern that I've got, that I don't think we're going fast enough. In the non-bridge related stuff. I frankly think on the bridge related stuff, we're not going fast enough either, but I'm concerned about non-bridge related,
Yeah,
to be ready
agreed.
when that thing's not around.
Yeah, well, and the whole reason we got 2 new people on the airport advisory committee was because we thought they were really good people to help us. Come up with good development strategies and people that we believed were super qualified to help us.
Yeah.
They're airport people and they're motivated and they're
No, I
business
understand
people, so
when,
yeah,
when we talked, you know, that the working group came up with a bunch of ideas,
Yeah.
they've given them to Greg's, churning and burning through it. And they didn't, and I'm putting words in your mouth, so please correct me. There's no sense sitting around looking at each other until Greg's done with your work, with a recommendation. My point is, did we talk about maybe Greg needs some temporary help to get through this backlog so we can keep moving at an expedited rate? I sense it. And that's why I'm bringing it up. You know, I think we got to keep that airport moving faster than slower. And if it means we need to supplement you for 3 months, 6 months, here's one commissioner that's more than willing to consider it, because I can see if we don't do it, where are we going?
You bring a good point. Maybe we need to decide and identify our weakest link in our revenue stream and focus on that. Maybe even dedicate a commissioner, each one, to be, not oversee it, but be involved in it, maybe taking more of a hands-on approach. You know, we identify 5 weak links. And we all step up to the plate and work with staff, and then we come to conclusion, we come back and make a recommendation to the commission that, hey, Greg needs an assistant for 90 days or something like that.
That's an excellent idea.
Maybe we get more
Maybe
involved.
maybe we, as part of whatever fall meeting we decide to have, plan on not only coming up with specific direction, but actually divvying that up with, you know, hard dates and hard things that we're gonna bring back to each other to move forward. And then it'll be staff's in part job to tell us, okay, that's gonna require X, more staff, more time here, whatever.
Right.
Fair
Good.
points.
All right, what you got?
Let's see, what's next? I lost my place. Oh, my report. So, it was with great sadness that I note the notification we received from Jake Sharp that with the, end of Jerry Jake's long and storied career, he has been the Port's general counsel for 43 years. We will have our relationship with Jake Sharp ending on December 1st of this year. They have generously helped us to write up the draft for the RFQ that will need to be issued immediately. And that is an action item on in your packet today. Let's see, only other thing beyond what's written in the report, I just wanted to thank Daryl for all of the information that she included here about the boathouse flotation issue that was discussed earlier today in public comment. I do want to say that at the end of that discussion with Glenn Dolphin, who is the director of OSMB, he did want to reiterate that as the landlord, the port can certainly implement any requirements per is about the unencapsulated foam that we want to. We, you know,
Right.
we can be more strict in the rules than is required by law. But at the end of all of that exchange, Daryl did send out notification to the boathouse owners that the port wants to certainly lessen the impact since these leases are ending, and is okay with letting those that are in good enough condition not have to do their repair. Am I characterizing that right, Daryl? Okay, and then also in your report is the preliminary review only draft of the fracture critical and fatigue prone inspection from David Evans and Associates. John and I got an email just this afternoon from Mark Toby that he is head down in that report. He will be sending to us Thursday or Friday this week his comments. Those go to ODOT for their review. They reply back, and then he'll be able to report to you I think October 4th, what his presentation on what that the results mean. So he sent us a nice long email about that today. So he's working on that. And then the only other thing was to update you on the utility license agreements. Our legal team and each utilities legal team are going back and forth a little bit on some terms. Very few changes are being accepted that are being proposed by the utilities. Certainly the rates and the terms that you approved at your last meeting are staying. The third extension expires September 30. So what we're asking you to do with this additional action item D today is authorize the executive director to sign those agreements as soon as we get to final before September 30, or authorize an extension to November 1 if needed, hopefully not needed. Okay, so that's what that is. And any other questions on the report? Very thorough, okay.
All right, Kevin, you have
Yeah,
a brief update for us?
yeah, just quickly, just two things that weren't included in the written report. I did get an email, actually, I think, Hal Hoomster and I got an email from Dan Marr. Dan is Senator Merkley's field rep. And the senator did reach out to Secretary Buttigieg's office and to make a personal request for our input grant application. So the timing was really good because those decisions are being made this week. And so we should be hearing in the next 7 to 10 days how we did. So
Did he mention at all the latest SUI on our bridge?
yes, so one of the reasons, so when we got the new update
Right.
from DEA.
Right.
Hal sent that off to all of the field, not just the field offices, but to the DC offices.
So that should help us.
That should help. That should help. So, so anyway, that's, it's good to see that the work that we did when we went back to DC in July is paying off, because that was the ask from Senator Merkley and all the other elected officials, was to reach out to the secretary's office. And it appears that that is happening. The other item too is that the application for the $2 million Safe Streets for All action planning grant is complete. And once that grant application, if we're successful, we'll go through a planning effort that we can then leverage into about $30 million maximum bike pedestrian facility, which could pay in part the bike ped portion of the bridge. So
And we're doing this jointly with Oregon and Washington. right?
Lickitat County, pretty much at this point, all of our applications are joint. So unless it says, unless we're saying otherwise, just assume it's going to be a joint application between the Port of Hood River and Lickitat County. So I guess, you know, the deadline for this Safe Streets for All grant, I believe it's the 15th. So if there's consensus of the board that we should continue to move forward, that would be appreciated to note in the minutes. So looks like we
Yes.
have received that. Thank you for
please.
that. And then just, so do you want me to
Yeah.
catch on the other two items? So the two items that Commissioner Fox inquired about was the upcoming October 14th tour with Washington and Oregon state legislators. This is, I guess, the best way to kind of characterize it. It's the state version of the federal tour that took place last month. And so, but we won't be having field staff here. We'll have actual legislators, about 20. And we will be giving them an update on the project here at the port office. We will then be going over to likely to in situ and hearing from their CEO about the importance of the bridge to their workforce.
We may have a problem with that. That's a secure facility. So we may not be allowed in. So we may have to do that remotely.
Gotcha,
We're gonna
okay.
keep maybe.
Yeah, so we're still kind of in the planning stages of where we're gonna be going. For example, on the Oregon side, you know, we're looking at either the fruit company or Underwood Fruit. We haven't really worked out those details yet. But those types. of
Yeah, we
places.
need a planning party on that. But one of the issues that I see, and we've talked a little bit about, this room is not big enough for that entourage. So we got to find an auditorium someplace that,
But we have the gorge, we could get the gorge room, I'm sure, we just try to book the
Yeah.
gorge from there or
Yeah.
something, but yeah,
That's
the
what
big
it's-
one, the pyramid.
Okay.
That could coincide with lunch too.
Yeah, that would actually be a lot easier because then everybody could
We
park
could
over
walk the
there.
path.
the other thing we were kind of thinking about is somehow showcasing the river this time
Yeah.
with the logistics of the barges having to make that bad turn.
Maybe get a barge ride.
Exactly.
Yeah, we can call some friends.
We've been talking a little bit about that.
Call Shaver.
Call Chamber.
And we'll bring our fishing
Tidewater.
poles too.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, I just think it'd be a good idea for staff to understand that. I mean, if you talk to any of the barge pilots right now, it's well known that this little section is the most dangerous section on the Columbia Passage.
Hmm.
All
And the
way to
navigation
River.
clearance does play
It's
into
the
that.
narrowest,
sufficiency rating.
it's the narrowest passage. And those are the tightest turns they are required to make coming into the most narrow passage.
So the new bridge is moved out a little bit, so you hit that square. And you don't have to have that hard turn right at that spot.
Video, Watching it turn.
I'm sorry.
We were trying to get them on a.
And then the other one,
Yeah, and the other one is that we're gonna be coming into the long session in Salem and in Olympia. And so we are getting signed up now with one-on-one meetings with members of the bi-state working group, our lobbying staff, with those key legislators. So, for example, we'll be focused primarily with transportation committee members and also Ways and Means Committee members. I think typically we do about 36 interviews with each state. So 36 one-on-ones with legislators and key agency folks, just to talk them through the project, reinforce the messaging. And our ask this year we're really looking for 125 million from each state. We're about 75, actually 80 million from Washington State. So
we'll take more. if it
we'll
gets-
take more, depending on what comes out of Washington DC this Congress. So, but that'll be great. So the real interest there is, will be Representative 5 is the House Transportation Committee member, and he's the one that really is looking at this project very carefully to make sure that the money that they see investing here is gonna pencil out. So that traffic and revenue money that they put in, this is an opportunity for him to come down and really see this project up close and personal. So it'll be very, very busy for Commissioner Fox and the members of the bi-state working group, because we try to get at least 3 of them in that meeting and let them do the talking, and staff is there to provide support. And then that goes on for, that's probably a 3 to 4 month process in both. And so I usually work with the Washington bi-state working group members and theirs, and then there's usually one Oregon member that sits in there, and then vice versa when we're talking to the Oregon legislators. So that's coming up, and that'll be, everybody needs to be flexible because schedules change, people get whisked away, and so it's a very exciting time of the year. So that'll be fun to dive into. That'll be starting in about 2 weeks.
Actually, next week.
That's right, the first one in the next week. So other than that, I guess I'll hand it over to Mike Shannon. Yep.
So kind of in support of that, we're gonna be coming back to the last day working group on the 19th. With some presentations.
Yes, woke them up. I really didn't make them that mad. With some work that we're gonna be advancing, both under what we currently have under contract, with the project delivery method and getting to that recommendation this year, which was reinforced by the US DOT meeting last week, where they are gonna start potentially going to start requiring that type of analysis as a value for money, to show that you've considered all options and you're choosing what they feels like the best option is. So we'll present on that on the 19th and kind of walk you through what that's going to look like with the recommendation in December. Also then advancing geotech work so that we can get out and start getting some data, which was something that was kind of postponed from the NEPA work, and get us out and get the data so that we can start framing what this next contract will look like once we know the delivery method, as well as advancing some early engineering work to also support that. And it's really geared around getting to an RFP and getting the box that we're going to work in so that we can get what I'm calling the final designer and final contractor in here to start working with them to start, putting this money to good use and showing the representatives that we're moving forward and we're serious about getting the project done. So we're putting a little bit of a blinders on that we don't have all the money and we're gonna take what money we have and make the most out of it. So that's kind of what we're gonna do and then hope that that shows, everybody that we're serious about getting this done.
So I spent an hour and a half, 2 hours earlier today doing a pre-review of all of this information that's coming in for Monday of next week. Question for the port. Once it goes through the bi-state and we get a recommendation and a consensus from the bi-state to come forward, they're going to spend next Monday, I expect we'll be in there for a couple of hours just going through each of these particular issues. What does the port want to see? Do you want to go through the same level of detail and that's fine? Or do you want to go a slightly more elevated detail with a recommendation from the bi-state? How would you guys like to receive this information?
I would say after seeing the bi-state level of commitment on things, that if they recommend it, I'd support it. So I would say a higher level for myself.
Mike, you want to
I would
comment on
agree
that?
with them.
Yeah, we're open to doing it either way. I mean, what we're planning to do is walk through it with the bi-state working group, then provide them with scope fee and schedule. And then I think we're looking at doing an independent analysis of that. And then we will meet with the bi-state working group 2 weeks later, and we're gonna have to ask them to do maybe a couple extra meetings over the next 2 months just to get some of these review processes done. And then we will walk through with them any questions they have, look at the independent estimate, make sure everybody's okay. So it will be well vetted before it ever gets to the port for recommendation. So we don't have a problem with that if you guys are comfortable with that process, but we're more than willing to come in and present the whole thing to both groups if we need to.
So what we're really talking about here is that we want to, I believe, the recommendation is going to come forward is to increase the scope of work right now for HNTB to include geotech work as well as early design work, which means we're going to have to commit more money to the contract. We've got the money. It's my opinion right now, we got to strongly consider it as long as it's within reason and we can do an ICE on it and we're showing that we've got reasonable value to the customer, to the public. I think we got to open the purse strings up and get going. And this is the way that we can start to show progress and actually make progress on the bridge and get us ready to go into the water.
And part of that is also bringing some key people on full-time to be fully engaged. And right now I'm less than half-time. There's, project controls person is kind of the same way because of the original scope we did. We want to bring both of them on full-time and be here, non-distracted from pursuing the bridge.
And I think from what I saw earlier this afternoon, there's plenty of work for these guys to do. And we'll be able to show you that even at an intermediate level, there's plenty of work to go justify this. So.
The one thing that I think that this body would need that the bi-state working group might not need is some kind of a fiscal impact analysis for this year's budget. If it's going to require some kind of a budget transfer or, how it's going to change our adopted budget. There are some legal things we have to do if we're moving, I think it's more than 10% of our approved budget allocated differently. We have to be able to go through some hoops with that, and there's some public notice required. So that's the only thing that I think that we would have to have a full understanding of, noting that we currently do not have a CFO that in-house would do that analysis. So we might need some help, with the fiscal impact part of this thing that the bi-state working group really, in terms of priorities, we're completely aligned.
No question.
Yeah,
That's a really, really good point. We need to do that. But the other thing to be assured, we're not tapping into any revenue from the port.
Right.
It's all external revenue from
It's all grant
grants and
funded.
so on.
Yes, that's what I was gonna say, was this is
Yeah.
coming out of the Washington grant, the 5 million that we currently have. And also the Oregon grant that's 5 million that got approved, and then
we think we are through the questions with the feds on the build grant, which is the
Yeah.
additional 5 million.
So if the fiscal impact to our approved budget for this year is nil, then I don't have
We
it.
just have to make sure the full expenditure authority is.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
so I think it's really worthwhile to go ahead and do that to make sure that we're. in
I
compliance.
can work with whoever needs to on, and like, we'll, on the 20th, we'll have all of our scope and fee. So we'll know exactly what the ask is gonna be and be able to sit down and talk numbers and say, okay, here's what, what we're looking at. And, yep, make sure everybody's in agreement.
Good.
Okay.
Thanks,
Um,
Deb.
Okay. Good, get one more?
Well, the only other thing I was wanting to give you an update on was the NEPA work, because it's gonna come in when I ask you about the WSP. So just a little bit of background about why the ask for the WSP additional funds is what they call the biological opinion that we've been working on. If you've heard, that's been somewhat delayed. That is an ODOT process with the feds. We have offered, WSP has offered to try to help and make that a quicker process. We've been told, nope, back off. We will continue to do that if there is an opportunity to help at all. But what kind of happened was there was a branch chief change within the federal level. And the process that ODOT is typically using, that person has said, I don't really agree with the way you've been doing this. Instead of using a condensed form, we want you to use a long form. So ODOT is in the process of reformatting. So it doesn't sound like it's like a technical or anything like that. It's more of just, we need to put it in a different form. So ODOT is in the process of doing that. They think they will be done with that process at the end of the year. That's their goal. So we think in January, we will get that biological opinion. And then we believe that then, and I've asked WSP, once we get that, what's your time frame? They've said that they need 4 weeks after that, maybe less, to turn that around, do all the little button close up things they need to do for the NEPA and the ROD to be able to then have the NEPA and the ROD complete early March. Which gets them a buffer in their contract, which the ask will be is a 6-month extension. So it should finish in the end of February. They're asking to go to the end of March just to make sure, but that's the schedule right now. We're meeting with them on a weekly, every 2 weeks, we're meeting with them to kind of shove that along and continue to push that. One other big item to that was a vote that you all did previously, which was to allow the commitments to be carried through. We're gonna have a meeting on Friday with FHWA, hopefully to talk that through with them. We've put that now into the commission formation agreements, into the NEPA documents, and also into the MOA that is part of those NEPA documents. And what that allows us to do is separate the FEIS and the ROD in that agreement from the fish mitigation impact agreement, which is individual things and separate, and run those separately. So the ROD can move forward and then those mitigation things can be done on a different track. There's precedent for that Washington did that way with the Muckleshoots. When they ran into that, they did their FEIS and ROD and then they did the separate mitigation impacts differently. So we're hopeful that now with that commitment that everybody will be okay with that, but we'll find out more. We hope on Friday, and then that will be one other thing that allows the FEIS and the ROD go.
Is that fellow from, I guess it's ODOT, still coming in on Monday to talk to us about this biological assessment and why it
Is he
changed?
Dennis Reich.
Dennis, yes. he
Yeah,
is.
it's either gonna be Dennis Reich, who is the state's environmental manager for ODOT, or it will be Tom Loynes, who is the liaison between ODOT and National Marine Fisheries. Frankly, Tom's a little bit closer to the branch chief than Dennis, so it's either gonna be Dennis or Tom, but he will be presenting to the bi-state working group.
I'm really kind of upset that here we go again. Now we're talking another 3 months, maybe. And I'm wondering if it's time to pull a gun out and go above them and say, hey, look at our bridge. It's degrading. Why are you taking 3 months to do a reformat on something that you've had for 2 years.
Yep, and Kevin did that in a kind of an interim step. He went
But he's too
to,
nice.
well, he was, but still, but he did take an interim step to that. And we talked to the FHW lady out of Seattle, who's the regional person, and asked her to take a look and said, same kind of that similar comment was, hey, kind of, can you look into this? Because we can't get answers. She took a look at it, and that's what she really came back to us with, was that it's really because they changed staff and they changed what they would accept because of that change that we're having. And
But in my opinion, that's their problem. They need to expedite it. And if
Agreed.
3 months is an expedited, I'm going.
yeah, and well,
Or we-
probably not.
We'll talk some more about that. Okay.
One thing I
So
would say in ODOT's defense is that this is a national marine fisheries issue that they're delegating to ODOT.
Yeah.
And so ODOT wants to get this off their desk as much as we do.
Yes,
And so, so I told the poor guy that was actually crafting this buy-off, who's now gonna have to written it twice.
Do it again.
yeah.
He didn't want, he's like, man, I've already done this thing.
Right.
And so ODOT and the port are on the same page here. It's that National Marine Fisheries guy.
Okay, so and we're working on an issue. Let's work it later on.
Yeah.
Let's get this guy to do it in a week. And we'll find out.
They're 80-page documents.
Yes.
Okay.
Is that it, Mike?
Yeah, that's it. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. Two committee reports this evening. Urban renewal, Commissioner Garrett, you want to take that one?
There was a meeting last night and it basically was to talk about a feasibility study for the west side. So the port didn't really have any say in it. The decision goes to the city. It was pretty much informational, but it sounds like they'll be pushing forward with a feasibility study for the west side district.
Any questions on that one? Okay. And then there was Energy Council update as well.
I got an update on what the Energy Council is working on. They've got a few projects that they're working towards. One is called Solarize Hood River County. It's a campaign to do educational workshops and work with contractors for kind of reduced rates if people are interested in getting solar or solar storage on their homes. It's mostly for residential, not geared towards businesses. And there's more information on the website. They're also doing EVs for everyone. They're working on an educational event on how to talk about getting everyone into electric vehicles and charging and financial incentives and fleets. And so it might be something that we want to look at to see what opportunities there are for governmental agencies to receive funding for electric vehicle fleets. And then they're also going to be working with MCED and hiring a DEI training for the Energy Council and key supporters and spending money on a consultant for that training. And then they're working on their website and that's about it. So that's kind of what they're spending their resources on. Any questions?
All right, thank you. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4 action items.
Okay.
Airport grant offer, Greg.
Yeah, so commissioners, this is essentially the AWAS, the weather tracking system at the airport. There's a couple issues with it. The windsock component, when it was installed, the private trees that are just to the north and to the west weren't nearly as tall as where they are now. And so it creates an issue with being able to adequately reflect how the wind is being read or where the wind's coming from. And looking into how to replace this, the FAA said, well, your equipment is largely out of date. We're not gonna finance a relocation of a part of this. You might as well consider an upgrade to this system in and of itself. So this first part of this phase is the design phase, really looking into where could we relocate the windsock or the anemometer is what it's called, and the rest of the equipment would remain in place. So this, like I said, is just one of the two phases. The second phase would be the construction of the actual equipment itself. It's part of our agreements with the FAA in the sense of that there are grant assurances that coincide with this funding. There's a 90-10 split, and so the $100,000 project allotment, the port would be responsible for about $11,000. Now, what I didn't say, I guess, in the memo and should be noted is generally there are core grants that can offset that in addition to the FAA 90%. So in all likelihood, the port would not be out the $11,000 that it would cost for part of this project. But once again, this is part of phase one of two for equipment out on the airport to help track the weather and report that to the aircraft in the air as well.
So- And forgive me the way I say this. We're gonna spend $100,000 to figure out where to move a flag
We're gonna spend
or
$11,000.
windsock.
No, $11,000 is our obligation. It's 10%.
We're gonna spend $100,000 of taxpayer money
Okay.
to move a windsock.
So yeah, the design and the review and assessment of what equipment is ultimately necessary. Yes, sir, that is exactly right. The FAA is.
How much
going
does
to
it
work
cost
out.
to cut the trees down?
They're not our trees.
So there's a wetland
trees are in the
that
wetland.
actually
Yeah.
is harbors up to it. So the likelihood
Did
of-
anybody look at an option of that?
so there's a wetland that is part of this whole area that.
No, the reason,
The airport is currently navigating through dealing with just the portion of the north apron that had to be renovated. I would say that it would largely, the expenditure would be well above $100,000 to cut those trees that you'd have to go to the DSL as well as private ownership. Yeah, it's an unfortunate circumstance, but there's. I mean, when it comes to safety of the aircraft that are up in the air and utilizing that equipment, it seemed like that was
Greg, I get that. I understand I'm part of it. Did we go out for this $100,000? Is it based on competitive bids or is it?
Well, so it is being designed by PAE, which is our aircraft, our airport engineering firm. Now, their assessment is reviewed as far as the FAA looks at it as far as whether it's competitive or not, and we also look at it whether it's competitive or not. So they're the organization we hired to do this type of work, and that's what they're proposing to do.
Greg, we're gonna upgrade the actual equipment itself.
That's correct, it's brand new.
It's kind of off the cuff question, but last weekend I got on there and it didn't identify the smoke when we have initially. And so it showed clear under 12,000 feet. Visibility was by 4 miles.
Hmm.
And it said visibility was 6+, but the ceiling was 12,000.
Hmm.
And so when we look at this, if there's a newer feature that it has the ability to identify smoke, they're more accurate. Because as the pilot, I don't care if it's a cloud or smoke, it's gonna hamper my visibility, you know.
Still can't
and
see.
we still can't see, exactly right. So if there is a new technology that is upgrade to allow to identify smoke, can be really helpful. As we proceed into the next century and
Right.
fires are, it's one of my biggest concerns now as a pilot. is- Yeah, it's not weather so much, it's that where's the fire at? Which way the winds are blow that week, I kind of fly there. Yeah, so just curious, I don't
Not knowing the
know.
equipment as
Yeah.
this, intimate, that it's AWAS 3 PT, so I can ask. Does that identify smoke and what
Yeah.
I mean, it's certainly an upgrade from the
Oh, yeah.
2004 or 5 equipment that we have there, and so. That's why the FAA deemed it necessary to upgrade if we were gonna.
I think it's a very valid point you bring up. Maybe we need to make sure that it's in the spec. That if we're gonna upgrade this thing, let's take it to what locally is needed, and we're gonna have lots of fires from now on.
If the technology is available.
If
Yeah,
it's available.
yeah, because like I said, it's
Yeah.
definitely a problem for us. It's gonna be ongoing, it sounds
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
Thank you.
My dad flew in a week and a half ago, I think, to pick up my nephews. And I called him, I woke up and looked outside and I was like, oh, Dad, it's super cloudy and really windy out here. He's like, well, AWAS was reporting like 5 knot winds. Must not be as windy as you think. And he landed and he aborted the flight for my nephews because he said, and he tied down for a few hours. He's like waiting for it to calm down to take off again.
And another thing,
Very much needed.
webcam.
Yeah.
Get on the webcam, you get to do the same thing and look at the webcam, like you and I did in Florence that day.
Yep.
You can see the sock out there, you know, that's another tool a pilot can use, you know.
So let's look into that as part of this. You've got that note.
But this is just part one.
Yes, but this is.
Do we want to move forward with part one? Is the part?
I can interject, if you do decide to approve this, we'll need a motion authorizing the interim executive director to sign this actual grant agreement so that.
Can we make that as part of the action item? Just as-
Absolutely, I just wanted to put that out there as part of the requirement of the grant agreement, and Jerry's gonna want to know that that was a motion that was approved by the commission before he signed off.
Perfect. So if anyone would like to make a motion on that, just add that to your motion.
I can make a motion. Make a motion to approve acceptance of grant offer for airport improvement program and key project number 3-41-0026-1017-2022 at the Ken Jensen Airfield. And allow the interim director to sign on behalf of the board.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yep.
Aye as well. Pass. Thank you, Greg. Michael, number 2.
All right, so
WSP.
this is an amendment to do two things. One is increase WSP's current budget by $40,000 and then to extend it through March of 2023. This is, as I said earlier, because of the extension of the biological opinion and the need to carry out the ROD for additional months. Their current contract expired in September or ended September, so it's a 6-month extension. We did go through and reallocate all the money that they had available to make sure we used up all the pots and buckets that they had and then closed out everything that could be closed out. So that's kind of the ask now, is to keep them and maintain them on for another 6 months to carry us through the FES ROD. And Angel is on board, the PM for WSP, if we have specific questions that we can't answer.
I would recommend to the commission, we've looked at this, the bi-state agrees with this approach. I would also recommend, Mike, that we start a trend program, and this is number one trend, that it's a scope change to the to our project because of this delay. And we start keeping track of all of these things that are popping up. Because over time, it's going to be extensive and we need reasons of why costs are going up, schedules going out. Here's the first one.
We can do that. We could start change log and start tracking that.
Perfect. Feel free to make a motion.
Okay, I would offer up a recommendation to authorize amendment number 9 with WSP for continuing environmental work in amount not to exceed an additional $40,514 and a total contract value of $3,461,733 through March of 23.
There's a second. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
As well. Pass. Thank you.
Thanks, Angela.
Thank you. Appreciate that from all the members of the commission. Thank you.
Okay,
Item C.
So item C is staff requesting your authorization to immediately issue the RFQ for general counsel services in recognition of again, Jerry Jake's retirement on December 2nd and the conclusion of the court's representation by Jake Sharp. From a legal perspective, nobody understands the port like Jake Sharp. And their staff has generously drafted this RFQ for us as their first effort proactively to help us through the transition process. This is a really critical transition. I would even call it historic transition and the end of our legal representation by Jake Sharp. So I want to express my gratitude to Anna and her whole team for drafting the RFQ and ask for your authorization to issue that this week. That would result in hopefully a number of responses to the RFQ that we could then use to invite proposals from firms and move forward to a new contract for general counsel.
And so if we don't do this, then they have to stay.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. I never even, why did I think of that? Yeah.
One thing I'd also add to that is Jake Sharp has not only agreed to draft the RFQ, but also to help in the vetting of potential firms and be a part of this process. So we thought that was important. that
A
they're
really
part of that and they
critical
agreed to do it
ally.
as well.
Yeah.
So you make the motion, you stutter, is that you want to do?
Yeah.
Stutter it out?
We should postpone this to the next meeting.
I'll make a motion to authorize the request for publication for general counsel services.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 I as well.
Reluctant.
And lastly, the utility edition, Genevieve.
Yeah, so we are, our legal team has been working really hard to respond to each utility's legal teams, push back on some of the terms and conditions of the proposed utility licenses for the bridge. And Anna's been doing a great job helping us field questions and respond to those literally in real time. The third extension of these utility licenses expires September 30. Since this is our only meeting in September, what we're asking for is a motion authorizing the port's executive director to either execute one or more of the utility agreements subject to legal counsel's concurrence or execute an extension to November 1 if necessary. So that is the motion that we're looking for.
I will make a motion authorizing the Port's executive director to either execute one or more of the utility agreements subject to Port's legal counsel concurrence or to execute an extension to November 1, 2022 if necessary.
I've just got one question before. These agreements, what they're trying to do, none of them are trying to extend their lease beyond whenever that bridge is finished.
One of them made such an attempt and it's being rejected.
Your directions to staff are being followed
Yes.
Okay,
as a commission. I mean,
Yes.
they're being followed.
second the motion.
So now on discussion, I just want to reiterate that if we do approve this motion, that we don't want to kick this can down the road.
Yeah.
We've done that with the last ED, kicked it down the road, didn't address it. We're not going to do that. So
Yes.
if we approve it, you have your marching orders that you're not gonna,
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
I'm
this
fine
is-
with this, but
Yeah.
I've been here too long to have this thing keep.
Thanks to Anna's work, we're able to say to them, this is our best and final offer. Great.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
I as well. You're taken care of. Commission call, Commissioner Strike.
Touch real briefly with Mike's comment about the variation of the bridge. I think it's a real important comment on clarify. Because of the pictures and stuff, I was kind of moved by that. Or the severity of it. I thought we had a longer window. So maybe just for a minute, you're kind of bringing.
Well,
What changed?
And we're gonna have engineering come in next meeting
Okay.
to talk about it, and we've asked that the engineer go back 2 or 3 reports and try and do a trend line for us. You know, is this thing going over the curve, or is it on a slow ramp down, or what?
Is there
But
something we're doing as far as allowing the
Well-
load limit again?
the other litmus test for me, because everybody else uses it, is the sufficiency rating. If you remember, it went from 44 to 38 to 16.
And 6.
It's now 6.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's
That's
a big
kind of a
jump.
concern.
Yeah, it's huge.
Now, between us, I would not be surprised that the reason between it went from 16 to 6 is whoever did the calculation put in the effect of what they saw on the underwater report,
Oh, okay.
which is
Not normally
significant
combined.
change from maybe what they've looked at for several years. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if they ignored the underwater report, the last several reports.
Just
But
for
I-
clarification, Mike.
Yeah.
We're on YouTube. Between you, between
Yeah,
us.
between us, everybody in the public. Yeah, I knew that.
funny. Thank you.
Yeah, so.
That's why I'm very concerned about winning ourselves off the bridge as quick as we can.
Do you have anything else to add, Commissioner Fox?
No, I'm good.
Commissioner Gary?
I went to the fly-in, the airport, but that was big success. There are a lot of people out there utilizing the fly-in and checking out all the cool airplanes. Did they make it out there?
Yeah, I did too. I went Friday, yeah.
Special compliments to the facilities crew for
Mhm.
prepping the airport to be so beautiful, ready for
Yeah.
all of those guests. It's the
Yeah.
most important event at the airport every year.
Yeah, it was really nice. Despite the smoke.
Yeah.
Commissioner Chapman?
Just a big shout out. I know that there was a huge event last week down at the event site, what was it, I don't know.
All Wind Sport Industry.
All in sports industry. It was packed. I've never seen that many people down there. And from what I heard, the feedback, it was a good success. And just that kind of was the last event, I think, not the last, but. Harvest for the warming. No, no, the last summertime event. The
Yeah.
last summertime event. We're moving into fall, but I just want to give shout out to facilities crew and to waterfront people for just maintaining that whole area all summer long. So kudos.
I'll pass that along to the crew for sure. It's been a tough summer.
Yeah.
I do not have anything to add to any of that.
Okay.
Directives this evening.
There were many, I'm sorry, I didn't take notes, but we do have a direction to touch base with PAE about the smoke detection capabilities of the new AWAS equipment. We have direction beyond all the motions. I think we have a direction to I'm sorry, I lost it, with Mark Libby to come at our October 4th meeting with his
Correct.
review, but that's it, right? Correct. Did I miss anything, Pat?
Also, to dig your heels in, item D.
Yes. That's the final offer. Yep. That's it.
Was it a directive to speed up our search to increase revenue?
Increase revenues on that.
Waterfront. Kind of.
Every place.
Everywhere.
I think, yeah, every,
For fall planning, but also to revisit fall planning, to have it be more efficient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or effective.
cash flow centers, yeah.
Go find the money.
Okay. Right. Oh, thank you. Good. Okay, with that, if there's nothing else, then I can recess regular session. And we could enter into executive session under ORS 192.6602F to consider information or records that are exempt from disclosure by law, including advice from legal counsel. And I'm going to take just a couple minute break. Thank you.